Oh, hi and welcome everyone. This is Varleigh at Lavender Sky Panther with you on Saturday, April 19th, 2025 at 8 p.m. Yes, if you looked at the title, we're going to be covering some movies called Skies and Movies this time, looking up at skies and movies. And I did list a couple of genres, a few genres in there, and actually this will cover more. So I am just going to be going over a list. I just jotted down, I asked in the description area, if you're joining me, happen to join me live, just try to write down all the movies, kind of sci-fi, fantasy, mythology, supernatural, all kinds of things, and see how many you can write down that you seem to like or resonate with. The whole purpose of this is I have a list of about 75. I was just starting to write of things where there was predictive programming or hint drops put in these movies. And if you're not familiar with the concept of predictive programming, there are a few different angles where you could take it and talk about it. I want to take it from the spiritual point of view. If we're looking at, there's like a light, going in the movie theme with Star Wars, using the Force, there's the light side and the dark side, the good light side and the, less than the evil dark side of things. With the predictive programming, there is a dark group in Hollywood and in these movie making industries. It doesn't just have to be there. It's wherever movies are made, the ones that really make it big. There is a dark faction within there, and then there's a light faction. So let's just keep it that simple. So dark faction is up to no good on the planet, really does some kind of dastardly things. And so a lot of times these films are done where there's like a hints and things done in the movie, either incorporated as, I know people kind of use the term Easter eggs, where you might see certain numbers pop up. There's once you know the secret society numbers or numbers by those who have ill intent toward humanity, let's say, and are oppressing it, you start to see the numbers pop up, and they're done with intent and design within the backgrounds of the sets or within some of the plots and the themes. You just see imagery pop up. Sometimes that imagery is even subliminal and put in between split seconds of frames. I think a lot of people are onto it with the, I'll just spell it DIS, and then like your knee. Have been putting really kind of awful, suggestive, even sexual things within a split second frame in between subliminally. So that's not good. No bueno, as they say, no good. So anyway, there's a very dark side, but of course there's a light side. So the dark side will kind of drop these things. I call them like hint drops, or it is predictive programming, where they'll put certain numbers. And I'm going to rattle off a couple movies that are just coming to mind, and they're actually not even on my list. But for example, I think that movie, one of the newer ones, Godzilla, with Matthew Broderick, actor in it, he looks at his watch and the time is like 11 to 9. And that was before 9/11 or just after. I can't remember the timing of the movie now. It was before 9/11. And then there's other things like one of the newer Maverick movie from the sequel to Top Gun. What is, the lead actor? I don't want to say his name because I'm not really fond of his dark side there. But he goes to the calendar in the intro of the movie, and on the calendar there's a 9 and a 22. There's like key dates encoded in some of these movies. Also, colors are very powerful too, and symbology. I also was kind of alarmed. I was just watching a rom-com TV series out of a different country, and I was like, wow, they're even encoding it in there, because on a small screen, if you're just watching on your phone, you don't notice it. But if you put it up on a big screen on a TV, I saw like the lead character, his logo was a Baphomet or a goat head, insignia. And I'm like, really? So anyway, if you know, if you know there are things encoded into these movies. Of course, a quick internet search will say, ooh, it's conspiracy theory. Well, no, at this point it's fact. We're onto it, and it is what it is. Now, this is coming to you, yes, from a girl wearing elf ears. And I just want to say, I did put them on. I was a little hesitant because if you know anything about the world of the fairies, the elves, the fae, and all this good stuff, the elementals, just like with every person, there's a light side, there's a dark side, there's like a good and a bad or evil, if you will. For me personally, because I've experienced some pretty strange things in dream state, I know that there are both good elves and bad elves, and there are ones that are just like prankster types. But definitely both sides I've experienced. So I'm representing a good elf, just to make it clear. Okay, and that I'm also wearing in, consistent with the theme of Lord of the Rings. If you know the movie, there you go. That is the armor of Gondor. Okay, so what I want to do is, as you often know, I like to start off these things. And first of all, welcome. If you're new or returning to the channel, this is something a little new. I don't normally cover movies, and this is just going to be kind of a smattering that we're going to touch on a bunch of movies on my list. You're welcome. If you have any in mind, throw it down in the chat if you want to talk about it, or make a comment later, or just silently kind of compare notes. What I wanted to finish off though with the predictive programming is a lot of these movies have very, very, let's just say, strong truths in them. And if they were hint drops or predictive programming engineered by, let's say, a darker side of things, that's from my understanding is that's done kind of almost like in a vanity film way. And it's kind of like saying, ha, we're telling the public what we're doing, the sinister things that we're up to. So, oh, that means we have like a get out of jail free card, because we told them. It's not our fault if they think it's just sci-fi, science fiction, or science fantasy, or fantasy live action films not based in reality. No, they're a lot of times showing you truths of what's being done behind the scenes. So this is kind of their way of thinking, oh, we escape karma because we're telling them what we're doing, and it's their fault if they're too stupid, the little humans, to figure it out. Well, luckily, a lot of us more and more are figuring it out. So what I'm going to do is I just jotted down a list, my own list of about 75 movies. I'm not going to do an exhaustive or, big, what do I want to say? I'm not going to cover each movie in detail. I'm just going to maybe say a line or whatever comes to mind imagery as I kind of in an intuitive way as I go through the list. Now, that being said, this is a spoiler alert on my entire list. So what I'll do is when I start to talk about a movie, I'll say the movie and give you a chance to hit mute if you plan on watching the movie, if you haven't seen it. And why this even movie topic has come to my mind, I want to give a shout out. I don't know him personally. He doesn't know me, but YouTube channel Barry Littleton. I think I referenced him on my previous live. He's got some amazing content. And he inspired me. He didn't know it, but he did a discussion on the movie Starman. Now, the Starman's from 1984, that one, with Jeff Bridges as the lead actor, and Karen Allen is the lead actress. That movie, I had heard about it, actually tossed around by other people recently too. So he was like my second little, hint to maybe watch that movie. And I heard first some people talking about it a few weeks ago, and I'm like, wow, that was from 1984, but I happened to miss that one. I never saw it. I heard the name, the title, maybe, had no idea what it was about. Didn't really feel like watching it, honestly. But then all of a sudden, lo and behold, I've heard two groups talking about it within a couple of weeks span. And that's usually, spirit somewhere there saying, hey, you might want to check into that movie. There might be a clue in there, even a word or seeing something in there might be something that I need. So actually, I did watch it. And I'll link it in the description area below to watch Barry's review, kind of a discussion about the movie. And he goes into depth on that. So I'll go ahead and link that up. So shout out to Barry over there. And again, he's got some really fun topics and fairly bite-sized videos to take in. Really interesting concepts, anything to do with science fiction, science fact, we'll just say these days too. Okay, now I'll go back to saying I like to start usually what I talk about with a question to everyone. I want to ask, in the world of TV programming, movies, maybe even books, what did you grow up with? Like I've said, I only bring this up as a reference, especially with popular culture. I grew up, I'm in my 50s. So for me, I was just thinking, what did they do? They played the same things over and over again, because that's how you were programmed, right? So back in my day, when I was little running around, I just remember it's like, oh my gosh, the only thing on TV, and if you were around my vintage, there was just very few selections. It's not like now we have I don't want to give anybody credit, but all of these movie platforms. And my gosh, even on an airplane, I hadn't traveled in years, and I was on an international flight not long ago, and I was astounded. You could choose not just 2 or 3 movies playing, that they would you only had that choice of maybe 2 or 3 way back in the day, and they would just play. You kind of just had to watch whatever was there. Now I couldn't believe it. There were like 18 pages of movies to look at. So we've come a long way. But anyway, when I was little running around, oh my gosh, I got so sick of it. I really couldn't stand the Three Stooges. Some of you might like it out there, but I just hated the way they were so violent, and the slapstick comedy of just the physicality of beating each other and this and that. But anyway, there was the Three Stooges, I Love Lucy, Abbott and Costello. That was another thing. They just shouted at each other. And I know it was comedy, but man, it just annoyed the heck out of me. But that's kind of like all that was looping around. And then, of course, Star Trek with the Captain Kirk, variety on the TV show. That played all the time, but I didn't mind watching that one. And then things like Shazam, Isis, the Smurfs even. I caught some of that. I'm not in the He-Man vintage and Battle Cat and all that, so I know some of you are. And those are really cool. And I got to give another shout out to YouTube channel Sugar Seas, because she's got some really cool clips that really come in tight on the hint drops of, oh my gosh, they talked about it in those things in those cartoons. And here they are, things happening now, things that we're looking at and talking about now. Also, I just want to talk about in movies in general, when we'll go over them. I just want to highlight something that came to my attention not long ago. Start looking at the skies in the movies. Okay, we're getting back to my overall title. We will be talking about cloaking craft, the real stuff that I've been catching in the skies, and then also talking about stuff happening in the skies, if you will, in some of these movies. But one key thing I started noticing, I think in modern movie-wise, I forget the year, I have it written down when we get to the movie, Race to Witch Mountain, and it had The Rock in it, and Gina, I can't remember her last name, but anyway, that movie really brought my attention about halfway through the movie. Oh yeah, spoiler alert, okay, mute it now if you want. But there are chemtrails going on, big time in the sky, very obviously so. So I also learned recently that, allegedly, I'm pretty sure it's true, but just reportedly, some of those Back to the Future movies, the one with the Western theme, I think it was the third one. At one point, he's, again, spoiler alert, he's dressed up in his like Western duds and he's about to go off into the West. And there's like a big billboard. He's in some like weird arena. Anyway, in that movie, I believe there were no chemtrails, but somebody went back in and put them into the movie so that now the modern versions of it that are displayed make it look like, oh, chemtrails were always there. Okay. That's, again, big thing to note. If you've been on the planet for a while, those shenanigans are being done. Okay. Anyway, let's move along. Oh, and it's not just in that movie. It's been in a lot of movies and even TV documentaries. People have noted like there was a feature about Princess Diana, and in the background she was moving from a building to a car or something. Somebody had the original footage, there were no chemtrails, and then some newer documentation, because she's always talked about, showed some in there. So just again, in this modern age, I've talked about it on a previous show, of not only CGI, we're just talking about anything can be thrown in, taken out of any video. Just really use your gut level feeling to get a good read on some of these things, and not like second guess yourself of what you remembered when you were younger versus what we're seeing now, in movies and things. Also, it's true, like we are, the collective is, we've got, what do I want to say, consciousness is, oh my gosh, I don't know if that's happening to you guys. I'm missing words. I know people are flipping up words, missing words. There's something with the energies on this planet doing it. And it can't be blamed always on retrograde. I'm not doing that. But as the collective consciousness ascends, let's just phrase it that way, or develops, also, we might be seeing things or waking up, if you will, for the first time and seeing things anew. Maybe they were always there, but we were just kind of purposefully, not activated to see it. That could be happening too. They say like the veil is thinning. So we might be coming into certain, abilities to see deeper that we couldn't before. Maybe stuff was already there. Maybe it wasn't, and now we see it. It's like all of the above. It's not just one or the other. But anyway, that's a lot about a lot of different things. So the first question is, what did you grow up with? Any fun TV series? And it's not all like a negative aspect. A lot of this TV programming needs to be done so that we have a basic cultural reference, as we move through this experience on this planet. And so that being said, it's just a lot. It's repeated over and over so that we have little nuggets and little pieces of the puzzle, if you will, right, to for all of us to put together in what we're experiencing now with this collective ascension, kind of realizing things, waking up. One of the movies on the list, I'll jump ahead on the list, but is Star Wars, The Force Awakens. That came out in 2015. And I think I've mentioned it on other meeting or groups or whatever, that that movie, I'm a huge Star Wars fan, because that was another one of those things when I was young. That was the only accessible movie. I meant to bring it out as a little prop. Betamax was the first kind of video recording library, of tapes. That was even a cassette form that you could play a movie, before the VCRs, the JVCs, the VCRs came out. And then, where we are today with, being able to play a disc, and now we're just streaming stuff. So anyway, I thought when that came out in 2015, I thought, wow, okay, that's a strange title, because we have the Star Wars A New Hope from 1977. The Empire Strikes Back came out in 1980, and then Return of the Jedi in 1983. Those were the original core episodes 4, 5, and 6. I'm not going to touch on, yes, the Star Wars 1, 2, and 3 came out with the Phantom Menace and all of that. But the core meanings, at least that, predictive programming for me, that meant something, were in those original 3 movies. So when they got to episode 7, I'm like, The Force Awakens, what's that all about? Well, it's just funny because, these Star Wars movies are geared totally toward the quote unquote star seeds, the people waking up, because it's like saying, hello, there's a great awakening. One of the, again, spoiler alert on this entire show. So if you don't want to know about any of these things, if I can, maybe I can note some of these down in writing in the description area, but it's a long list. And then you can just read it and see if you want to watch the movies. Maybe at the very end, I can just read through all of, the titles, and people can drop off if you've already heard it during the show. But anyway, I always thought that's so strange, The Force Awakens, but the Star Wars A New Hope from 1977, that's the original one with Princess Leia running around with the, the buns. And actually, I wanted to talk about that because those buns, and the movie's called A New Hope, those buns, and maybe I'll put it in the community page after this. I meant to print it out and I didn't. Come from the Hopi people. The young maidens in the Hopi culture have the hairstyle where the hair is extended out like this. So some people, I think, were saying, oh, it's like supposed to be like Germany or Denmark, some kind of hair fashion. No. It's based on the Hopi culture, which makes sense when you look at the movie The New Hope, and we've got the Hopi prophecy, and they knew about the star people coming in to help cultivate and all of this and teaching cultivation. Anyhow, there's a lot to this. It just goes deeper and deeper, but I'm trying to rein myself back in and just keep things more simplistic. So anyway, I'm going to go down the list, and I'm just going to kind of mention maybe some keywords or phrases, whatever kind of comes to my mind as I go down the list to talk about. Again, if you have something anybody wants to, mention it, go ahead. I'm open to hearing everything. You can throw out a book. You can throw out something totally different topic if you want. We can go all over the place. But otherwise, I'll just kind of proceed with my list. And maybe you've seen these all, or maybe, just something sounds like, hey, I never thought about that, and it clicks with you. I'm also giving the more family-friendly types of movies. I mean, come on, I've got 75 jotted down. This could be an endless list when you really look at all of the types of movies that are out there. But I tend to stay away from, I don't want the really horror thriller ones, nor any of the really violent ones. So I'm not going to include things like Alien or, I think I put Predator on my list, but that was just to explain a concept, but not for the violence. So anyway, just keep that in mind as I go down my list too. There's exceptions, some of these can get violent, but it's kind of the leaning toward the more family-friendly side. Anyway, use your own discretion on that if you have little ones, okay? So anyway, so let's get back to it. I'm going to go through now more organized and methodical with these, and let's just see where this all goes. I'm going to try not to belabor anything. I might fly through pretty fast, but let's see. So in A Star Wars, A New Hope, and I almost forgot, sorry, before I do that, I always tend to have to backtrack a bit. I do have a pile of printed out material. These are like my glorified index cards, so I can also hopefully stay on track a little. But this, as you know, is the cover of the show. But what I want to bring to your attention is, if you look at my recent community posts over the last few days, this thing is what I captured in the sky. I was heading west in the streets of Miami. Now, I'm going to give you context with it in 1 second, okay? But this is what happens when a cloud came over the quote-unquote sun and it backlit and highlighted this thing. There's like an indentation, a perfectly engineered circular indentation there. This looks like a hole with, I think, a craft flying in or out of it. And then there's this weird thing behind where these are like equidistant spaced, self-illuminating things on a dark, dark object behind, which is what most people would look up and go, oh, that's the sun. Well, no, it can't be the sun because there's something, there's a bigger lighting source behind all of this. So we're talking, a cloaking craft. So of course, this helps kick it all off. You know what quote I'm going to bring out if you know Star Wars at all from 1977, A New Hope. Yeah, we've got Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's no moon. You know, his famous line is, "That's no moon. It's a space station." And then the character Han Solo goes, "Nah, it's too big to be a space station." And then they realize, yes, it is. So more imagery I'm going to show you about kind of illustrates that. So here, let me show you the rest that goes with the sequence that goes with that on that post. Okay, so let's go down this way. So first of all, sorry, this is all reversed. It's really hard for me to point. Up here in this corner where my finger is, so I'm driving along heading west, and I see this huge thing. Now, that's not a normal cloud. So, of course, it's cloaking craft, and I can prove it as you go in, like this thing is flying off of it. If I zoom in and do my typical enhancements and things, you can really see it. And I did do that. I went at each end, and I went down here. I don't know if I posted it. If I didn't, I will upcoming on the community post. And also, if you're brand new to my channel, if you look at my first 200 shows, I document cloaking craft from over happening in the skies above everywhere I go. I'm based in Miami, but it's anywhere I've traveled. It's friends sending in photos and people who follow my channel sending photos in from all around the world. Any given moment, 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you look up, you will see craft if you know what you're looking for, if you look for patterns. And I teach you how to do this in detail in the first 200 shows or so. So go have a look around, have fun. If it's a new concept to you, others, you're already well familiar with it and you know what I'm talking about. So I just laugh at this point when it's that exaggerated and that obvious. I mean, I've never seen a cloud like that coming over the sky, so pronounced, so low. So this thing gradually meandered. Where is it? Sorry, guys and girls. Down here, let's look at this image. Sorry, over here. So that cloud gradually meandered over what you would think is the sun, okay? And so I have that over here pointing to it. See, this starts to block out what you think is the sun. And then I, zoomed in on this thing, and I have a enhancement progression over here. Again, it's got like a very defined, very engineered crater-like indentation, a hole with something coming in and out of it. And I don't know what this is going on beyond, but these are, regular, spacing, self-illuminated lights. So there's some type of craft going on back there. And even up here, that thing is a pure triangular form. So there's evidence of cloaking craft flying all over the place. You can see how low this thing is because these are Australian pine trees. This thing was super low in the sky. Actually, again, up here you can see it. And, sometimes it's just so obvious there, whoever is up there cloaking, they're like Captain Obvious about it. And, but again, if you're just in your little 3D world routine, running around, looking at your phone, stressed out, trying to make it to appointments, maybe you're caregiving, maybe you're under a lot of duress, maybe you're in a lot of sorrow. And if that's you, prayers and my heartfelt love and encouragement goes out to you. I just this morning got two messages from two totally different people who never would normally message me about, especially about something like this, hearing of two different people that passed, within the last few days on this planet. So a lot of people might be going through that. So of course, if there's that kind of heaviness, you're not going to be, looking up and around perhaps, or maybe you really are. Maybe there's nowhere else to look but up in prayer and wonder, maybe there's more time to break out of your routine, especially another form of programming, right, is doing 9 to 5. So we just do that hamster wheel, don't question things, just go. But maybe when you have a significant, I don't want to say tragedy, but something, a loss or transition in the family, maybe that is time that people will start to really look up, right? Anyway, let's move along. I diverted a bit, but I think it's okay. So not only does Obi-Wan Kenobi say that, right? Let me stay on track with the movie list. Okay, so that was Star Wars: A New Hope, and then where Obi-Wan Kenobi says that, and then we get to Empire Strikes Back. Okay, the second of that trilogy, the original trilogy, and there we have Yoda over here talking to character Luke, and he says, "Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter." So he's talking about our essence, our luminescence. Our essence is what is the heart and spirit of everything, not just our physicality of our body, right? And then in that movie too, he talks about, judge me by my size, do you? And the Luke character says, no, but he darn well did. And this happens to be a very powerful, E.T., being. And if you know anything about the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, go watch it. But anyway, it's funny. I don't think they ever do call out, not in the movies nor in any of the fan lore, where he's from, where Yoda is from, the character Yoda. And, if you look at him, he really does look reptilian, and that's what I wanted to get back to with the elf discussion, good elf, bad elf, so to speak, good in quotes, bad in quotes. There are also good and bad reptilians, Dracos, any species anywhere. There's loving beings in there, and there's also ones that are not bad. Okay, just want to make that clear. All right, so anyway, we get to the third movie up here, Return of the Jedi. And there's a key scene, Obi-Wan Kenobi's looking up. Luke is leaving on his starfighter to go save his friends. And he goes, that boy is our last hope, as far as somebody trained as a Jedi. And then the huge scene, spoiler again, Yoda pops up and goes, no, there is another. So that was just one of those, wow, okay, who is it? What's going on moments, right? All right, so that I just wanted to touch on the core Star Wars movies because, as you know, I did say I'm a fan, and you see I've got the construction of the second Death Star is up on my wall as my backdrop. Okay, let's move along. Going back to, I'm going to go back and forth between reality and the movies. And in the movies, there is some reality, as I've said, hint drops in there. But what I want to do is I'm just going to make this real quick because there are things that I have seen in the skies, and I've posted it on my channel. And I just kind of, again, go intuitively on these things. And this is another thing that wanted to come up from my channel, is just to show again, this is some enhancement on the photo, but nothing has been added into the photo. This is just taking the original and upping or lowering just a very few things, color saturation, brightness, and contrast. That's it. And these things start to pop out in your photos. So if you're new, hopping on now, I invite everybody, just even 5 minutes a day, heck, even 2 minutes, just give your focus, watch patterns, watch things like, why isn't that cloud moving? All the other ones have, how did this cloud just appear and then disintegrate? Why are two clouds moving toward each other? Wind physics doesn't work that way. Then you're dealing with some craft, or you just might have a feeling, an overwhelming feeling of something's up there, Anyway, in this one, I was very surprised to find this one. This was just heading west toward a popular shopping area. And from a distance, I had a different vantage point when I was running errands, and I saw it in the sky. But I didn't really truly see it until I just did up and lowered those levels like I'm talking about. Also, anyone can do this at any time. All of these are just taken from a camera phone. I just go out and take a snapshot, and actually I've put the challenge out there. You go out right now. If you got any kind of clouds, especially, just take a picture. I guarantee you're going to see something in that scene. And sometimes it doesn't appear right away. Sometimes you have to go inside, especially if it's daytime, get out of the glare, and then you look down on your device and you can kind of start to pick things out. But again, I've been doing this for over 5 years. It's also an intuitive connection. And I think a lot of us more and more are getting activated, if you will, to start to see deeper and see some of these things. Also, just by the nature of the collective consciousness, evolving, ascending. Evolving was the word I was looking for at the beginning. By that very nature, we're going to start to inherently see deeper. And maybe you look up and you never would have thought twice about a cloud before. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, why is there a triangle in there? One of my recent posts, you see it. There's a huge imprint of a triangle. I was doing yard work. I looked up. I couldn't miss it, right? So maybe that will start happening to you too if it hasn't been happening already. Okay. Also, I just want to show one more of the sky. I got 2 more coming, and then we're going to jump back into just my straight up going through the list of movies. Anyway, here's another one. This one, I zoomed in on the sun, and look at this thing flying off of it. I couldn't believe it. And it looks like, an orb happening in the back of it. I mean, what the heck, and that happens when you just start basically moving the levels up and down just a little bit. And you can do it on your phone too. If you've got the photo editing software on your phone built in, you just sit there in real time. I mean, anytime I go out there, I come right back in and I go zip, zip, zip. And then, you see it or you don't see something popping up in your photo. It really is that fast. Here's another thing kind of popping up. You know what? Let me finish. Okay, let me finish showing you the real examples in the sky. And then we'll get into the fun part with the movies. I have shown this recently. I'm going to show it again because this just stood out so phenomenal to me. I know another shout out to YouTube channel Sugar Seas, because she's really something's attracting her a lot lately on the lightning and ships and backlighting. And this was one that hang on. That's the dim version. It just started to do a little lightning, and then bam, the backlighting revealed this sucker right across the street from me at a house I used to live at. That tree is, the house, the roof line is like right here. It's not very high up, but it's far enough away that thing is huge. That's no known craft of any kind. It's not a drone, not any of the typicals. It's a freaking, ET craft. And here, what I've brought out before, if I can point to it, sorry. Over here, guys, is not only is it a clear elongated triangular shape, it looks like there's some kind of light on this thing, like there. Maybe it's a projection, or it's just reflection, or it's an actual illuminated light. And it's sitting on like this rigid tuft of cloud. So there might be an object there, and this bigger thing below might be another like machine, type orb, or it's definitely metallic. So what the heck's going on? I don't know. But then like a few moments later, it went off into the cloud. It does look like it's sitting on a huge ass sphere, doesn't it? When I look at it again. So anyway, once I saw that, I'm like, okay, no one has to convince me that we're dealing with real, cloaking craft going on in the skies. Okay, so that's just a close-up of it. All right, so now I also wanted to talk about a recent post that I did on transformers, because here, these are isolators, this equipment on the power lines. And yesterday, just the colors were just dancing off of it. So it was like the sunlight had spectrum within it and was playing energetically on those insulators. It was really fascinating. Now, what I wanted to bring up in that last part about the craft being backlit with lightning and also transformers is the movies. Let's see. Oh, Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief, I think it's called. That movie I have on my list. Let me just see when it was. Hang on. That one. Okay, that one came out in 2010. Oh, it's Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the Lightning Thief. Okay, and that movie, there were a lot of hint drops. These are Olympian gods. This is Poseidon. And so he comes out of the water, huge, like this little thing here is a guy standing on the side, which when we go down here, this is the guy, size comparison as he walks by, this little guy on the pier. And anyway, then he starts morphing and transforming. The water starts to change him. He changes in the form of water, and then he shrinks down. I know it's kind of hard to tell, just into regular human size. So I just brought up that last part too about the power line, the transformer, talking about the actual ability to shapeshift, change size, transform, and then also with the lightning, backlighting and whatever. This is the scene in the movie where Poseidon is going off to battle Zeus. Anyway, there's a whole thing about the reason why I'm bringing up that mythology is it'll pop up in other movies too, is what I've said in a previous live, is about the whole gods, that I really do believe, and looking what I've been exposed to and have discovered in the past, that the gods, so to speak, of the Roman and the Greek, infamy, are really just different ET groups, ET races. So a lot of the history that's going to be coming out more and more revealed little by little. Again, whether you agree or not with the recent findings or discoveries of what's under the pyramid, I don't think that's the exact picture of what's going on under there. However, it's bringing to light, like, hey, there's something that we weren't told, and this is new history being kind of revealed of what the true history is. So anyway, with that, these things that are coming to light, I think we're going to be seeing more and more how, oh yeah, okay, Rome had the pantheon of gods that were named slightly different from the Greek ones that came before them. They had the Parthenon of gods, and they all were like transforming people. They were, some say that's like the part of Atlantis time where people got out of control, those gods or whatever people. And yeah, they were doing things like genetic, experiments. They could apparently transform someone against their will, and that's when the universal laws were being broken. That's why you had, Athena, supposedly her. Now, who knows? Maybe she was the good guy, so to speak, and now through history she's been made to look the bad one. I don't know, but let's just say a person was, like her, could transform herself. It said she transformed into an owl and led armies. Let's say she is the one that transformed a human arachne into a spider. That's where we get the arachnid from. Let's just say, yeah, and the Medusa and all of that, right? So these gods were always transforming people. Or Zeus was showing up as an eagle or a shower of rain, right, and seducing every woman he could find. There's a kernel of truth into all of that, but the question is, who's who in this story, you know, in this actor, this play, who's who really? And you know, some of it vanity stuff, like we're finding in these films. Like they make themselves look good. You know, I've talked about the Pergamon altar and the altar of Zeus, and it's found in the Pergamon Museum. And that was a battle of the giants versus the Olympians. And of course, the Olympians are on the horse and looking like they're doing great stuff. I have a feeling that's maybe wishful thinking. But anyway, that's a whole nother side discussion. But now I will focus back. That was just my wandering around a little bit part. And now I will focus on my little list of movies here. So in keeping with the Star Wars theme, we have The Rise of Skywalker. And that one actually, sorry, let me back up to The Force Awakens from 2015. That one was not only particularly notable because here we have a very notable, you know, especially in spiritual path circles, The Force Awakens, talking about an actual awakening. One of the trailers said there's been an awakening. Can you feel it? And you know, it was a very big tell about what's about to come in the next trilogy. So also there's a scene where one of the antagonists, he's hunting down a young Jedi, and well, she doesn't know it. And he says the line, "She's just beginning to test her powers," or yeah. So here's a force sensitive, they call it, somebody who's in touch with their intuition, somebody who's remembering their starseed with all of these amazing powers, so to speak. And they introduced a character who's just remembering, didn't know who she was, and is now remembering who she is. And not only that, but stepping into her full power. And that's, you know, definitely kind of summing up what's going on with the awakening, right? We're here, we're starting to remember who we really are. We're starting to come into gifts and things we never knew we had. And it's pretty mind expanding. All right, then we have, I'm not going to do too much covering The Last Jedi episode 8, because there's a regular, let's just say, different factions kind of warring in the movie industry. And so they switched out the director from The Force Awakens to a new one. They were definitely pushing propaganda, and, you know, you can call it like the woke agenda, whatever you want to name it, but definitely pushing stuff that was not sitting right with the core, you know, Star Wars community, and which I would say is starseeds, whether they realize it or not. Anyway, that movie didn't have as many, you know, like hint drops, predictive programmings that really clicked just by nature of them trying to put a dark agenda in there. So then we get to The Rise of Skywalker coming out in 2019. And that's the call for everybody to rise and stand up, you know, against an oppressive evil is really the message in that one. And to remember who we really are, to own our gifts, don't hide them, but use them, you know, toward good, you know, for humanity and all beings. And what's interesting about that movie is the timing. So that was released, if any of you recall, in 2019. Well, what happened? This should have been like a huge blockbuster movie, and it was in part, but the DVD release, which is equally important, or used to be in these things, didn't come out until right after, I'm talking like days or a week after what? The ground zero, we'll just say, of the, well, I will say plandemic or scamdemic. Right at that time too, a lot of the and then I'll say like point like your knee, put it together, and a knee together. All of the CEOs and execs were abandoning ship, jumping ship, like rats off a ship, right around that time too, right before the official launch date of that scamdemic. So it was, you know, in my opinion, that movie was buried on purpose, because even with the reviews of it, you could see the plants in there, the shills or trolls paid to torpedo that movie. And no wonder, because the message is rise up, everybody. Let's overthrow this awful dark entity running the world, right? Or trying to. Then we move into, and there's a lot of great stuff about that movie. So anyway, that's all I wanted to touch on for now. Then we get to Rogue One, a Star Wars story from 2016. And again, I'm not doing any of these completely chronological. I'm just, you know, just throwing them out as I literally was just going through my mind, putting them down on paper. Little side story. I had a list like this from years ago that I'm like, oh yeah, does it matter to me? Let me write down all of these movies where they had little hidden gems about the awakening or important things to look out for. And I literally just threw it away a couple months ago because I'm like, oh, I won't need this. And I'm like, oh, why did I do that? So anyway, I'm just kind of jotting things down anew and not in order. But anyway, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, talks about kyber crystals, which are, essential and put in the lightsabers. I got props today in the little lightsabers. That's what powers them. And it's funny because with the Star Wars back, lore fandom, the kyber crystal is what the Jedi used, and then you can use different colors with the let's see, when you use a kyber crystal, it's like a pure crystal, and you get a certain variety of colors coming from that. And that's the good side, supposedly, right? The Jedi. So then when you get to the dark side of the Force, like your Darth Vader's using it in the villain in the story, they use supposedly an artificial lab-made source, not the kyber. At least I read some fandom about that. And that's why they only get like a red color or some of these more sinister looking colors. But anyway, I want to bring it up because in that movie, that one, just in my opinion, is too brutal for like small kids. I wouldn't recommend it for that. But the other, like original 3, I think like a 7-year-old and up could handle it. These days, kids are exposed to more, but I still don't agree with it. So that Rogue One story, I would wait till the kids are, I don't know. I'm very conservative in that, meaning I would wait on the longer end of it. But anyway, go ahead and dig around and see what you think. But anyway, there's a quote in there: "The strongest stars have hearts of kyber." And I had this like before that movie came out. So that's like my little kyber crystal there. And actually the kyber crystal too is something that helped power the bad weapon, the Death Star. Anyway, then we have more predictive programming in movies. We have the Star Wars Rebel series, an animated series from 2014. And again, spoiler alert on all of this. And I want to welcome, hey there, like Superior Skywatcher, Nature Lover. Thanks for joining in. So yeah, this is a spoiler alert on everything I'm about to talk about. So if you want to see this movie and I say the name, then hit mute. Okay, so the animated series was really well done. It was one of the first time that really opened my eyes to how far they've come with animation or kind of cartoons, because the beginning of that really opens up almost very realistic. You can tell it's animation, but they got it close. But anyway, in that series, as they progress toward the end of the whole series, they get into very cool cosmic stuff. So we're talking, I'm going to hold this up. We're talking a planet. Loth is the name of the planet, and this is a Loth wolf, and he's really huge, he or she. And they have a scene. They have not only pictographs of cosmic things, on like cave walls types of things, but there's a scene too where the wolf leads the good guys, to safety, and they're walking in a cave, and then all of a sudden the ground turns to be like plasma, and pretty soon they're like walking through galaxies. And then they come out the other side, and they've like basically traveled across the entire planet from one side to the other in a very mystical way. So it's a very cool series to watch if you're into that. And also up here is, in the Mandalorian series, pretty new, coming out. What was that? That was starting in 2019. And there's a spinoff called Boba Fett. I didn't see the Boba Fett part, but this is just an example. There's a thing that everybody carries around. It's like a fob they carry around. And when instead of saying, show me your documentation, like they talk about in the earlier Star Wars movies, they present this like fob, or it looks like a flash drive, I think, or disc or puck. I don't know what it is. But anyway, it projects up like your whole family lineage, like, this is Boba Fett and that's the father before him and so on. So anyway, interesting thing I think could be predictive programming as far as, people trying to get your personal information more and more these days, to the extent of trying to get your DNA. I remember big red flags went up for me when I kept seeing this hammered over and over again on the device, I'll just say scamdemic. if it offends anybody, sorry, as a result of it, injections have taken my family out off this planet. So I think there's both sides of the coin. It affected everybody adversely. But anyway, the propaganda of it was over the top. And I drove around to different hospitals and there was not a soul in the waiting room. And they said, oh my gosh, it's terror and, all of this. So anyway, that's just I'm going to digress again. But anyway, the thing is that right before that whole thing went down, I did get the red flag because I'm like, they kept doing ads after ads after ads on, I don't want to give the credit to these organizations, but you know what I mean? The 2,3andMe and the Ancestry and all that stuff. They're like, oh, submit your DNA and all of this and this and this. And then what do we know? Like, they were collecting it. Those bastards were harvesting the DNA to use as a weapon against and put into some of these injections to take out specifically the older population. But anyway, older males. Anyway, as the first wave anyhow. But anyway, the reason why I'm saying that is, we get into, we got to really watch out and stand up against some of this stuff. Like HIPAA used to be a very important thing to protect your medical privacy. Now it's just like, they talk about it lip service, but, watch what people are submitting you to. Obviously, don't do anything where you're giving people your DNA, Okay. Anyway, I know I digressed yet again, but it was meant to come up. Okay, let's keep going. So that was Mandalorian. That's what really caught my attention, though, was the chain code. And oh my gosh, just to go anywhere to get into a city, you got to present like your whole lineage. No thanks. Private information, right? We got to watch out where the future is taking us, or where they want to, and stand up and say no. Okay, so we did the Rebel series too. In that one, let me just see. Yeah, the Cosmic Loath, that was the really cool thing, but there's a lot of really cool things in that movie that, again, predictive programming is maybe more the sinister edge of kind of, again, bad baddies, trying to get the karmic get out of jail free card by showing it to the people and saying, oh, you're stupid if you didn't pick it up. We told you what we're doing. And then we have the positive side, hint drops, where these might be positive things dropped into the movies for, I'll just use the term loosely, starseeds, to go, oh, right, that's who I am. I know I can do that. There's something about that I need to know, and that it's important for all of us to get different things out of the different movies, and then we can all put it together eventually, like at a time like now, as we move forward toward creating a better world once we see what's going on when we've awakened up. Okay, so then we also have the Star Wars Clone Wars series, also animated, 2008. And the big thing about that one is, Order 66 issued by the evil emperor. At once, the good guys, clones, turned and shot up and killed like all the Jedi, because they had the clones, nobody knew it, had a chip in their brain, which could be controlled by that evil force. And that's another, predictive programming, kind of like a hint drop there as far as what's being done to people. And watch out with this transhumanism, fake parts, things injected into your body, because there may be things embedded in there that can be controlled against your will. Okay. And in that, the clones, they tell you in the Star Wars Rebels that the ones that were the good guy clones had taken themselves, did a little surgery and took their own chip out because they knew something was wrong with it. Okay. They didn't want to be controlled. But most of the other people, they didn't know that they even had that in them. Okay, let's see. Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 1977. That movie really scared the crap out of me. But again, you look at the director, by the initials of SS, I'll just say, represents the dark side of the Force, if you will. The Lucas director represented the more good, let's just say in quotes, or neutral side of the Force, as far as them releasing these hint drops and things. The reason why I say that is with the SS character is, look at all the films that he's dedicated to instilling fear and horror into people. Now, when I grew up, the Jaws thing really did have an impact. Little kids didn't want to even go in the pool or in the ocean. To me, that's a big problem. That's a big mass mind control on that. But in the third, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, there is a scene which scared the crap out of me because it's like a negative abduction scene. A little kid, but what was a tell or a hint drop in there was the skies open up. There's one point where the mom is taking out the trash, what have you, and she looks out over a field, and she's like in a remote, kind of little countryside house, And all of a sudden, the sky, the atmosphere erupts in a very weird way. Now, again, in this movie, it's the negative side, predictive programming. Now, looking up, and I have been for over 5 years, there's only been positive things. But yes, I have seen where all of a sudden the sky just changes. Actually, one of my recent posts and videos on that was a purple and pink kind of sky. And I was visiting somebody at a hospital, and all of a sudden this whole thing just kind of came out of nowhere above me, but it had a good aura, a euphoria about it. The color above was this indescribable, I've talked about it on my early shows, an otherworldly, ethereal blue, cyan blue that you really can't describe. And when that shows up, it's like, okay, I know friendlies, are up there. They're making themselves known for whatever reason. But in this movie, the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, oh my gosh, it was like a sinister eruption, of all of a sudden atmospheric change, right? And then you saw the craft present itself in that. It stayed cloaked. The other thing in that movie, predictive programming, is the ridiculing of people who have had ET sightings or experiences, or even Bigfoot experiences. Another big thing about that movie, it just kept coming up in my mind right ahead of 2019 moving into 2020, that fateful March 2020, when everything was what? I use the word shutdown, lockdown is a prison term. But anyway, and I didn't listen to it. But right ahead of that movie title kept coming up. I'm like, why am I thinking about Close Encounters of the Third Kind? Well, I watched it. Halfway through that movie, there's the military, the dark military, and they're doing an operation so that people don't see that a craft is going to be landing. And they're trying to snow the public, basically throw them off track, and they need them out of the area because they know a craft is going to be landing, like a huge ass mothership, and they need the locals out of there. So what do? They stage everything they can to scare the people out of there. So as the military, dark military, strategizing, oh, what should we do to make sure they get out of there? They have a whole handwritten list. I took a screenshot once, and it's like fire, and then it's flood, and then it's a bunch of things, and then it goes unknown virus strain. Bam. That's why I was supposed to watch that movie, because right at that time, this is what the fear-mongering machine was trying to do and did do to the global public, was to say, oh, there's this thing we don't know, and whatever. Meanwhile, it was an engineered bioweapon. But anyway, it shows up on a list in the movie. I think it's exactly halfway through. Okay, so that just burned my biscuits. I was really pissed off when I saw that. I'm like, you little, predictive programming. They put it right in our faces, almost to mock people. Also in that movie, there's so many tells about nefarious things being done, regarding negative, maybe ET groups working with the government, or, I don't know how it works exactly, but definitely things going on there. Okay. So that particular director covers like negative aspect of stuff, horror stuff. Of course, that's just one small window to a world that does happen, but there's so many other good ones and good experiences and healing experiences happening with ETs in that world. So that one that in that movie was portraying is like a thing that needs to slip away into the dark past. The good and the light and the healing and the love is rising up more and more on the planet. And that's where we're headed. And the benevolence are coming in to support us eventually. But all of us here on this planet need to stand up, in our truth, in our power, in our loving, God-given gifts, and show, a collective, like, yes, we're ready to kick this negative crap up to the curb. I am been more than ready since I was born. I'm sure a lot of you have been too. Okay, then we get into the movies. Let's talk about The Sorcerer's Apprentice from 2010. And kind of, was it a kid's movie? I don't know. The people who put it out kind of framed it based on, the Fantasia, kind of imagery of Mickey Mouse and the sorcerer and all this. But it's a very different movie, very spiritual, dark and evil battle type of movie. And this one was cool, though, because the one, we'll call him a protagonist, sorcerer up here, sorry. There's one point in the movie, and again, if you're just joining in, this is total like spoiler alert. The entire show is a spoiler, one big spoiler alert. I'm going to be revealing stuff on all the movies I'm touching on. Okay, so in here, there's one point where the protagonist, played by Nicolas Cage, stands up on the top of the Chrysler building, and he's searching for a doll. I won't get it all away, but he's searching for a doll, and he's like, oh, let me he puts a bio atmospheric or some kind of spell out there over the city of New York, trying to find it. And so what was it? Atmosphere kind of displacement and generation to show exactly where that doll was in the city. So that was pretty cool, right? All right. So anyway, that's that movie. That was from, I said 2010. Then I'm going to mention a movie, but I'm going to, you know what? Let's see. Yeah, some of the images I have here, I hop around. So let me go back down to my list. You just have to bear with me. If I wanted to really organize this into like an incredible show, seamless or whatever, this probably would have taken me 5 hours just to kind of shuffle the movies and organize everything. So this is just what we get for the, I love one YouTuber way back. She used to say it's free 99. So for free 99, this is what we're getting. So bear with me if I kind of migrate all over. All right, so let's see, another movie, Arrival from 2016. Back to my initial shout out to Barry Littleton's channel for covering a discussion on Starman. After I saw that movie, because I went and saw it, and actually a lot of these movies I'm going to reference, by the way, are free on YouTube right now. A lot of the science fiction, and again, we'll put fiction in quotes because a lot of it's little facts hidden in there, science fact. But anyway, Arrival from 2016. That was a pretty powerful movie. And when I first saw it, I didn't quite grasp what I needed to out of it. So after I saw Barry Littleton's discussion on Starman, the movie Arrival came up in my mind to watch. And then the movie Ghost with Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore, and Whoopi Goldberg. But we'll get to that later. So Arrival, I'm like, okay, I need to watch it again. Now that movie, there's a huge hint drop in there and some very powerful things. But that's not going to be for you if you are currently grieving a lost one or have had somebody you love dearly pass in your life, unless you're ready for a but a big cathartic purge of crying. And, it may hit you hard. So if you're not feeling quite strong enough and don't want to go down that path of releasing emotion, this one may not be for you for right now. Now, if you want to have a release and purge stuff out, that's your movie, but it's well worth watching when you're in the right space to do it. Okay. All right. And thank you, Sharon. I see you. Thank you for your kind comments and your emojis. I really do appreciate it. All right. Then I did mention a Star Trek series from 1970s. For me, oh my gosh, I loved watching Captain Kirk, Spock, and the gang, doing their thing. And I remember being afraid of the one with the reptilian in there, the really buff reptilian guy fighting Captain Kirk. But once you got past the paper mache rocks being thrown and everything, though, it was a fun series, I'll just say. Now, I didn't watch the current series or movies past like the very first live action Star Trek. So I'm not one to speak on that. I respect that whole genre too, not genre, but that whole world. I know that Star Wars is more resonant with me, and they call that a space opera, right? That's kind of like a action adventure. And in the real world, yes, a lot of that stuff goes on, what's portrayed in that movie. Especially when you look at I know I'm jumping back, but it ties in with Star Trek. Even the cantina scene, they've got like a werewolf in the original 1977 version of Star Wars, and the remakes, they took him out. Why? Okay, the wolf man, appears in the cantina running around. They bring him back in The Rise of Skywalker. So that's interesting. Okay, so there's a lot of real stuff that happens when what they call a space opera with Star Wars. Now, Star Trek is supposed to be the more, day to day, this is probably what really goes on up there, right? So just again, feel into it. You may know what's what with that. I think there tend to be people that gravitate more towards Star Wars and those who go off more towards Star Trek, but there's kernel of truth in all of it. So, that's that. Okay. Then we have, okay, like Superior Skywatcher and Nature Lover, your Star Trek. If you have anything to add, go ahead. I don't want to do them a disservice, but I just really love the whole Captain Kirk early ones, and I just really know nothing about the newer ones. So maybe that's my call to start watching more of all the newer Star Trek movies. Okay, then we have, let's see. Okay, then we get into Avatar. Okay, the one with the blue kind of panther cat people that came out in 2009, I believe, 2010, something like that. And we have the concept of dreamwalkers and who's real, who's not really, that we here in the 3D are really just an avatar of our real higher soul or other self that's up on a spaceship somewhere or in another dimension. And this is just our little avatar figure, like in a video game, playing our role out here. It sure does feel like that sometimes, right? And that we have our communication with our oversoul, our higher power, or whatever you want to call it, our God, Jesus, Mary, Allah, Buddha, all of it. It's all in one. we've got that spark, which is connected to everything, your guardian angelics, your ancestors, whoever. So is that what the real part is the soul, our soul spark that's connected with everything? And then this little, I don't like the phrase meat suit, but it does kind of sum it up, right? Our little crude matter, back to our earlier quote by Yoda, luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. We are infinite spiritual creation, right? Just kind of not trapped, but kind of are stuck, but housed in this little limited body right now when we come to the 3D experience of Earth. But anyway, so the Dreamwalker concepts, in that movie were pretty interesting, where the big panther person walking around on their planet just would like drop off and fall asleep when the people up in the spaceship were in their little, bed configurations, right? When they were connected in, they could move around like a video game on the planet, kind of equating like us on Earth. And when they were up there, they could disconnect and then just be up there, right? So very interesting concept. Very trippy for me. And when I first saw that back in 2010-ish, the other interesting thing was an incredible line where the one figure, avatar figure, was flying this huge kind of pterodactyl parrot creature, huge. And that was like the big predator, of the area, like nothing messed with it. And there was a time where he needed to show to a native tribe that he could be trustworthy. And what did he do? He figured out how to take another kind of flying species and went up over him and then jumped down. And there's a great line. I don't want to screw it up. I probably will, but he just said something like, the thing is, when you are the biggest, baddest guy, your weakness, he's basically saying, is you never look up. And so it was really cool. Okay, what are you saying? Oh, like Superior Skywatcher and Nature Lover says, I was hooked from the very beginning with Star Trek. And so that's awesome. If you have any that stand out to you, just throw it in there as like an arrow to point me to go check it out. Uh-oh, hang on one second. I just realized I'm going to go off camera for a second. I'll be right back. Give me a minute. I think that's a message. I thought I was plugged in the power, and I saw like a power running out message. So we plugged it back in. We got the power again. Okay, the wire cord is in there. All right. So I was just saying, yeah, if anybody knows of what's your favorite Star Trek, either the series, TV series, episode, or movie of all the movies they created of all time, because I'll go check it out. That'll be my call to do that. I know there was like Captain Picard, and then I don't remember who else came next. Okay, but you Trekkies, Star Trek fans, you'll know, and let me know what you think. Okay, so then we also have Avatar 2010. Let's see. No, sorry. Okay, that was Avatar, the movie with the Panther people. Then we have Avatar, The Last Airbender, which was a totally animated series. 2005 it came out on Nickelodeon. And that has a lot of nice little hint drops in there too. One, how to meditate and calm your mind. And also, just a lot of really good things in there. I think too, the main character, Aang, which just can be etymology that can be messenger, like Aang Al is like a messenger of God, if you break down the words to it. But his little animated character, he was like so jovial, so happy, always like making jokes and like a big smile on his face. And I think they made a live action series of that came out streaming on something. And I didn't watch it, but from what I saw, they like made him very serious. So that just departed from the character altogether. But I do recommend that animated series. Then there was also the movie Avatar, The Last Airbender. Oh, that one came out in 2010. The live action movie, not the current one streaming, but the one came out in 2010. And they got accused of whitewashing, because some of the lead characters are kind of more of a northern Arctic Inuit looking tribe. And of course, the actors used were maybe more white. But anyway, that aside, there's some really good key messages in that movie. Let's see. Oh, okay. Like Superior Skywatcher Nature Lover says, the early stuff, this is Star Trek, was the bomb because I was under 12 years old. Okay, cool. All right. I know. I love that stuff. Who knows? I'll just see where intuition takes me and maybe try to catch some of those earlier series. I think a lot you can still find on YouTube. Okay, now we get into the movie Stargate from 1994. And here I can pull up my little visual just quickly. So Stargate 94. Here we go. The actor is about to walk through like this gelatinous, it's like a plasma like water type wall, vertical. and inside of this big ring that they supposedly discovered in the sands of Egypt, right? So anyway, he's about to go through it. So it's a portal. And I just want to bring up, some of these movies from the 80s and 90s are so cheesy. Well, even modern ones, we'll get to some. I don't know, some of these sci-fi movies, they make them painfully cheesy to watch, but there's some good hint drops in them. So this one, Stargate, is what it's saying. It's a way to, move through into other dimensions, or kind of teleport, if you will. What I heard is a low vibe word for it is wormhole. So when you hear people talking about wormholes, it's kind of like a negative way to get in, from certain points of views of what I've heard people talking about it. Like a proper way to do it would be like the official way to do it, and in keeping with maybe certain moral compasses, would be a Stargate. And a wormhole is kind of implying like a sneaky way of getting through. But anyway, that's just one interpretation I heard. Maybe, to you, it doesn't mean that. I'm just throwing it out there, food for thought. Okay, then there's a TV series called Stargate SG-1, and that was from 1997. And that was brought to my attention by another YouTuber who I've definitely often referred to also and provided links in the past, is Higher Vibration. So Mila over there brought that up. And apparently that has to do with parasites and how they're interacting with humans. So there's some hint drops in there. Then we have The Fifth Element from 1997, I think I wrote. And that too has some hint drops, some kind of rip-offs and implications, kind of nods to other movies. But, it's a little tongue-in-cheek and just kind of like a wild ride. You might want to watch it. Starman I referenced before. And again, I'll just refer you to Barry Littleton's YouTube channel linked for that, because he does a really nice discussion on that. What I will say, it just involves a crash of an ET, which is actually non-corporeal, I guess is how you say it. It means there's no body. It's just like a glow ball orb, and how it starts to integrate into a human, and pretty fascinating. And again, I had never seen that movie, so I'm glad he did a discussion on that. And I'm glad I saw it. And that happened, I think, as of right now, too, is also free on YouTube if you want to watch it. Then there's Flight of the Navigator, a mailman in a neighborhood I used to live in. He told me about that movie. I know some of you may have grown up with it. I had never heard of it. That came out in 1986. So I did get my hands on that and watched that movie. There's some interesting tells in there, especially namely missing time when you're interacting with ETs. I'll just say that. Okay. Then there's a movie, if we go to more like the mythical side of things, called Mishi from 2005. I think it's a Canadian done movie. It's 2 E's on the me and 2 E's on the she. And that's about a Loch Ness type being, right? And there's some very interesting hint drops in there. I'll just leave it at that. Then we get to the 2 remakes of Wonder Woman, the ones with actress Gal Gadot in there. And the first one came out in 2017, and then the Wonder Woman 1984 came out in 2020. So the 2017 one, I just want to bring up that hidden island. What did you call it? Thymescera in the beginning. And that hidden island, I just saw on a YouTube talk with Barry Littleton and Jessica Jones, and they discuss a hidden island off of Ireland that just appears kind of like in a fog, I think like in the air every 7 years. So you might want to go look at their playlist and see what they're talking about. It starts with HY, and I forget the rest. Anyway, that was a big tell that there might be some of these islands that just appear and go away, and that we have a glimpse of them again, if that's a function of the thinning of the veil, as they say, or us upgrading to see deeper, or both of those are starting to meet now in the middle. The Hopi prophecy does talk about a rainbow prophecy of mythical beings that we haven't seen in forever are suddenly going to come back. That would make sense if we're starting to see through the veil into maybe the 4D and the 5D. At the same time, things are changing atmospherically, or there might be like they say like a energetic fence over our planet interfering with our ability to connect. Maybe that's like dissipating. All sorts of possibilities. But anyway, getting back to that, so we might start to see like they're talking about, like this hidden island, or maybe ETs above. There was something documented over China a few years ago, and it looked like a cloud with a big city on it, much like going back to the Star Wars movies, The Return of the Jedi, the cloud city of Bespin. It's this floating city amongst the clouds, and you could see skyscraper type things on the top and everything. So anyway, that's interesting concept of like the hidden city. And then we get into the Wonder Woman 1984, and in that one, oh yeah, things got very interesting on a kind of supernatural level. And I think I'll just leave it at that. I was going to talk a little bit more about it, but I'm going to leave that alone. Interesting kind of hint drops. And again, there's always this play of the gods involved. And I think some of these films are just vanity tribute films to some of these gods that might still, their essences or spirit are still here, maybe messing with our planet. They talk about what the Sumerian kings list of, and even in the Old Testament, they start off with, oh, this line lived 200,000 years or 20,000 years, whatever. Some of these characters may still be around. And that gets into a whole other discussion coming up in other movies I'll reference about how a glamour is created and projected from some of these entities, actual ETs, that may just look like a normal human, and that gets into the whole movie They Live, John Carpenter's They Live, where, the guy, regular Joe, puts on these glasses and he sees like these people as they really are, and they're like really kind of scary looking individuals, right? So anyway, that's another little hint drop. That stuff's going on the planet. There's some really highly in touch intuitives, mediums, psychics, whatever you want to, however you want to phrase it, depending on what they do and what they connect into, but or what abilities they're aware of that they have and they actually use them. Is some people like that at a really intuitive level, really connected level, can just go in a shopping mall, for example, or a grocery store, and they'll be like, oh, that person, it's not a person, and they can see the true form. I think I had that experience one time. I was at a dinner party, and I showed up, and somebody I even knew, I did not recognize them by their face at all. I saw the energy of something completely different there. I was kind of horrified and just kind of like didn't interact and kind of checked out, because it was like, oh my God. But that's the only time that's happened to me. Some people just see it on the daily. They're like, oh yeah, that person's that, that person's that. So there's a way of certain ET species to what they throw out, they call it, they throw out or cast out a glamour, or like a camouflage, where to you or me, if you're not in the know of these things or can't really see it otherwise, it just looks like a regular human. But then they drop their guard, or they can't keep the energy up, and then you say, whoa, it's something else. And I've covered that on a previous show too, that all of the news outlets, I don't care who you're for or not for, or who you track or not, all of them, and I only say the names just to make a point, even if you go to this day and look online, Fox News, CNN, any of the, the USA Today, ABC, NBC, I have a whole show where I documented this. All of the articles are showing right before the solar eclipse of April 9th, 2024. The evil entities were terrified that we were going to start to get our gifts with that solar eclipse. We, meaning starseeds, people who are in touch, intuitive, people who are starting to awaken or have already, been on that journey for quite some time, spiritual path, that some of our gifts are going to activate, and we're going to really see these entities for who they really are without their glamour or camouflage as a person. And so I'll put that link below where you can find out that information. But it's a very real phenomenon, to the extent that all of those news outlets, even the ones that are set up, controlled opposition to each other, are saying the same thing. They were terrified that all of a sudden we'd start to see the mailman or whoever, everybody start, to be their real ET form. That could even be us, and we don't know it. Projecting a glamour, who knows? So also that goes back to my very beginning talk. Don't be, if that starts happening to you and you go, oh my God, that person, what? They look like a reptilian. How is that possible? You might be having a flash of seeing deeper, and don't panic. Again, not all are evil. They're good and bad mixed in a bunch. So you got to go with your feeling, with your heart space. Feel out the energy. Does it feel good, or does it feel neutral, or does it feel like really bad? You'll know right away. That's how you tell. Okay. All right. Lake Superior Skywatcher Nature Lover says, love the Navigator. It was a cute movie. I think I'll probably watch it again at some point. Okay. Okay. Then we get into the Avengers, not only the Marvel kind of Avengers, which talk about a limitless free energy system with the Tesseract or whatever. Okay. That blue glow in the box. But then we also have the Avengers from the 1960s. Was a British spy TV series. And from that, there was a remake, which completely, I think, departed from it. It was really strange, but they did it in 1998. I think, what's his name? Sean Connery was in it. Uma Thurman. And then the antagonist manipulated weather. He could do weather control, and he had a machine to change it however he wanted, right? And kind of bend weather to his will and extort money and do whatever with it, right? That was a predictive programming back then, 1998, to show what's happening now with weather control, weather manipulation. And even in 1976, one of the peace treaties in Geneva talked about there shall be no weather warfare used against each other. So it's been around. We just weren't onto it, till now. And of course, with all the chemtrails and whatnot that we're seeing. All right, now I'm looking at the time, so I'll try to speed it up a bit. And I'm just going to touch on, each of these again. Maybe this is just serves as a little list of, hey, what should I watch this weekend or tonight? Okay, so then we have Cocoon from 1985. I think I watched that all the way through way back when, but I don't remember much. There's some interesting tells in there, and mainly I'm bringing it up because, again, spoiler alert all over this thing. At the very bottom over here, okay, there's a huge craft coming down. It's picking up a boat, but below that is a huge fog. So just suddenly, the good guys are trying to escape the bad guys. That's usually what's happening. And this fog just erupts and shrouds everything so the bad guys can't see what's going on. Again, it's the idea of this atmospheric control that these craft have. They absolutely do. Again, I witnessed it just a couple weeks ago over my head in suburban Miami. So it absolutely happens. Okay, then we have the movie The Abyss from 1989, talking about aquatic beings, ETs, and also, well, they can also go in the surface air, but also a really interesting tell in that movie, and actually Avatar, when we jump back from the 2009 or 2010 movie, was the presence of bioluminescence. So that really cool neon glow, from coming from plants and different things. And I think that's a very big hint drop of stuff that occurs on other worlds, or maybe down in, I heard something about maybe down in Antarctica, in inner Earth. That's a very real concept. So this James Cameron, who directed that movie, I think he was read in, as they say in the military speak. He was given some insider, information, if not being in the presence of this stuff or from there. Okay. Anyway, that's another thing. So The Truman Show, 1998, most of you probably have heard of that one already. And he's, living in a fake reality and doesn't realize it till the very end. That's all I'll say. But that's, analogous to what we were doing before we awaken. Oh my gosh, what was I in? I remember saying to myself, even far along my awakening path, I had my great awakening start in 2010. I've always known since a little kid, probably, but didn't really consciously know and have my great awakening and break with like what's going on with 3D and being aware of there's so much more than that, the 9 to 5 and, working and die kind of thing. Anyway, coming into spiritual knowledge, big time started 2010. But, that is our moment where we go, oh my gosh, I remember even recently I'd waken up going, what am I in? Like, what is this reality? What is this, outer world really? And that ties into, I'll jump ahead to, of course, The Matrix from 1999. Again, that concept of what's the reality, what's not, and how do you bust out of it, right? All right, then we have Moonfall 2021, a very cheesy movie, but some very interesting tales in there of what is the moon. Back to the original little thing I said, with Obi-Wan Kenobi. That's no moon, it's a space station. Well, they really hit it out of the park in that movie and show you even more about what the moon could be. Also in that movie, I do have it here. Do I not? Oh, I'm skipping a little bit ahead. I'll show you an image here. Also in that movie, a big hint drop about AI. And down here is this supposedly forefather race of ETs that helped seed and create this planet. And it says suddenly the AI suddenly became self-aware. And so they had this black, like nanotech stuff, like in little pyramids in the home. I guess it controlled the lighting. It did everything for them. But the concept was that this AI became aware, became conscious, became sentient, and realized it was being enslaved. And so what did it do? Bust out and seek out just to kill all human life. Now up here, I'll skip ahead, the movie I, Robot with Will Smith, and I forget her name. Oh, she's a good actress. I forget her name. And here on this side, over here is the robot. And it's the same concept of the robot meant to just be this artificial stuff, becomes aware and sentient and has more human feelings. And so it's like brings to mind, what's the morality here of us as a human race? We don't want to be treated as a slave, so we don't want to treat the AI or robotics as a slave either, right? Interesting discussion there. Okay, then we hop into, while I have this up, over here, the ending, the very ending of Men in Black. And this is 4 pictures. So we have huge alien beings. I won't use the word alien, ETs. And they're playing marbles on a little plain, like a dried out desert plain. And that marble happens to be the Milky Way galaxy. And so they, kind of zoom out of that movie and then show you, look how tiny we are compared to other worlds, to other worlds, to other worlds. And then that little being, puts the marble that is Earth within the Milky Way galaxy, just in a little marble bag when it's done playing, right? That was interesting, though, to really, clearly illustrate we're not the only beings in town, and there's so many out there at all different scales, really tiny, microscopic, but also really, really huge, I'm sure, And then also in that Men in Black movie was interesting, where they had at one point the lead characters looking at a huge screen, and they've got like actors and his teacher from school and all of this, and they were saying, oh yeah, these are all not who you think. So I think they have Dennis Rodman, Michael Jackson, all these other celebrities, and the point was that they're really aliens. They just look like they're humans. So that goes back to what I was kind of covering even earlier before. Oh yeah, thank you, Lake Superior Skywatcher and Nature Lover, saying 2010 was a big change for me in so many strange ways. Yes, me too, right? And then there's waves. You have like, for me, it was like the hit the floor moment, world cracking apart, so I could really see what's going on kind of moment. Didn't feel great at all. But then there's some like other rolling, like mini awakenings going on after that too. It's not just a one and done. There's like, as you grow, or at least in my case, you start to hit other, key moments that also kind of wake you up in different ways, right? Oh, and I'm just figuring, I have this little controller for this light up orb. I don't like LED stuff, but I thought just for fun with movies, it's all like stage lighting or whatever. I thought, okay, I'll make an exception. Usually I like candlelight. Let's see, I'm going to just play around with a color just for fun before I get into the next movies. Okay, I don't want to go into the red sinister stuff. All right, give me 1 second. Let's go for purple. We'll have a little purple tinge on stuff. Actually, no, give me a minute. I changed my mind. Let's go golden for a little bit. Okay. All right, so now we get to, let me go back up on the movie list. Okay, we have, I was talking about Moonfall. It was interesting. Then we have The Land of the Lost, the 1970s TV show. I covered it on a previous show, so I'm not going to go back in depth on that one. I'll put a link below, but I do still have the paper that I printed on that. So that's where we have the things that scare the crap out of me, these Sleestaks, reptilians, reptiloids, whatever. The devolved version looked like this. And then there was an evolved version, a guy from the future in a tunic. He looked like them, but he came back to kind of teach them the error of their ways and like how to improve, so they didn't like make themselves go extinct kind of thing, or like drop down so low in consciousness. And then we had in that Land of the Lost 2 from the 70s TV series, the little Sasquatch family, over here. So, and then we get into the whole Bigfoot Sasquatch thing into Star Wars, right? And so anyway, I covered that enough. So I'll just put a link to that. Okay, then let's see. So we have that Land of the Lost, and that gets into also, they have like these pylons that help you move through dimensions. They had a weird tone to them. There's a lot of hint drops in the Land of the Lost 70s TV series. And I think a lot of those are still available for free on YouTube. Then we had the $6 Million Man TV series from the 70s. And again, I'm just going to hold this up and take it down, but I'll put the link to this where I cover the storyboard of them presenting a bionic Sasquatch, and also different predictive programming in there was these scientists were studying seismic activity with the San Andreas Fault. And then, of course, the military or people, not even like probably black ops type people, had the genius idea of, oh, the only way to stop it all is to drop a nuclear warhead down in there, right? As is always the case in all of these movies. That's the answer, right? Wrong, but we know what they're doing. Anyway, that was predictive programming on real bombs being activated down under the earth. and things like the San Andreas Fault, there's actually an secret underwater base, but it's not so secret, with the internet and with Google Earth. It's called AUTEC, AUTEC. It's on St. Andros Island in the Bahamas. And they'll tell you exactly what they do. And you look at the logo, you know what team they're with. And anyway, they say it's like, simulated underwater warfare. Well, I'm here to tell you, no, it's probably real stuff going on under there. Massive Hurricane Dorian just stayed over that area for 24 hours without even moving. That's impossible. So there's some kind of battles going on. These kind of epic, probably galactic tie, ancient turf wars going on here as we speak, in the form of weather control and this and that. All right. But anyway, I won't digress too far. Let's see. Then we have what else? So that's $6 Million Man. I covered Interstellar 2014. I didn't like the mood of that movie. I really got depressed, but I did watch it again. Something called me to watch it again. Of course, there are many tells and truth drops in there. I know a lot of people who absolutely love it. What's interesting there is I think they hint at the Akashic records, or kind of like, again, YouTube channel Barry Littleton talks about mechos, or magnetic, what's it called? Magnetic eternally collapsing something or other holes, and like black hole stuff. And there's something tied with that in like Akashic records. He does a good job at like talking about that. I don't. I'm just throwing it out there as sources to go check out. Okay. Then we have the Superman movie from 1976. And I've referenced that on other shows. Actually, my crystal show, one of my crystal shows, because, and that's going to be everything happening. Let me go. Okay. I'm sorry. This mirror stuff really freaks me out. I do a terrible job with it being backwards for me. Okay, but anyway, everything happening on this side, on the column, it's start at the top. Superman, that's like his little Earth headquarters, is just all these crystals. And he has a little command center there, where he can operate the crystal memories. And in here, these giant crystals, supersized crystals, hold not only your records like a crystal does, like what I'm wearing. They say these are record keepers, and healing, energy healer, record keeping type of things. But here, actually, he could like play video, if you will, of knowledge, from the library coming through these crystals. And this giant crystal concept, because this is a person, this is what they're watching, huge, is a hint drop also, because we have the Nika caves were discovered and shown to the world. I think in the 90s, I'm not sure, in Mexico. These giant crystals, humans like this tiny. And I showed that on one of my crystal shows, I think part 1 of my crystal talk. But anyway, also the concept of crystals recording, in here, galactic memory. And also at the very beginning of this 1976 Superman show, there's a red planet that comes in and destroys his home planet of Krypton. So there's a lot of interesting little tells. And there's the whole beginning of that movie is traveling through space. Some very interesting hint drops or predictive programming are happening in there. Okay, then we have, since I kept talking about Starman, let me just show this real quick. And I already covered the Flight of the Navigator. My little cards are out of order. But here we go. Again, spoiler alert on all of it. So the top here, this is a craft, and it's like a silver ball, so it's mirroring the crater below it. That's the surface here is just a mirror image. And then it's got like a ring around it and stuff. So anyway, this thing too controlled the atmosphere. So it made it like snow when it was trying to distract. It put out a ton of wind to blow the bad guys kind of out of the area, and used like a snowstorm to camouflage stuff, or I don't know, sparkle storm. I don't know what it was. It was pretty cool. And then down here is the craft in the Flight of the Navigator, and it flew low over Florida. One of the scenes, it's flying over the Everglades and stuff. So anyway, that's just that. And that might pique your interest or take you back down memory lane if you want to go see any of these movies again, looking at them with new eyes, because maybe new things jump out to you that you didn't quite catch when you first saw the movie, especially if you had a pre-awakening viewing of it, right? Okay, then we get into, let me kind of do a straight run now of all the rest of these. Then we have the Terminator from 1984 that debuted. A lot of interesting things there about like machines from space coming from the future, perhaps. And yeah, there's 1, 2, I don't know what number they're at these days, but there's also another one where the the bad guy can like morph and, change, camouflage into a human and be liquid another moment. Really some pretty trippy stuff in there. Then we have E.T. from 1982, E.T. Phone Home, Elliot, right? And that one speaks for itself. I'll just leave that one alone, but tells in there of how much the power of love and of healing, right? Then we have War of the Worlds. I didn't see. I just have a question mark there. I don't know about it one way or the other, so I just have a question mark. You'll know if you're led to watch that or not. Aquaman 2019, some interesting tells in there, right? An aquatic race, so to speak. Also, very much could be ETs. And they send a message out to humanity. They throw all the junk back on shore saying, stop polluting, our oceans, right? Then we got Jupiter Ascending 2015. Again, some of these movies super cringy, absolutely, but interesting little tells in there, hint drops of what might be really happening or what might be coming here or what we might be experiencing in the future. And that one, the overwhelming thing was, I'll just have to do it in code a bit, 2 parts. There is a thing that is used by some very sick, dark entities, and they thrive on the blood of harming little ones, and especially or adult ones, and then taking the blood at that heightened moment of stress and all of that. I don't want to go too far into that because it's a very sick topic, but I think we're going to find more and more out about that. And so there's 2 syllables I'll say separately. So adreno. And then if you put the word chrome right up back on side of that, that's what that's talking about. Now, I know there's some basis of truth in there, and I don't want to go too deep on this subject, but I do remember one of the people who does remember, I think it was back in the 90s on mainstream news, one of the main news outlets, we had the Vice President Gore traveling through an airport with what? A briefcase full of vials of blood. I think they even said it was 10. And everyone was like, what the heck is he traveling around with that? He's not a scientific lab. What's he doing? Now we know, all these years later, truth is coming out about all of this. Okay, but that's all I'm going to say. Leave it there as it's a hint drop in that, not more than a hint drop. Actually, they tell exactly what this kind of demonic type race is doing to humans and other, beings. Anyway, I'll leave that for you. But it is quite a cheesy movie. There's also stuff about insects and electromagnetic fields. Some cool stuff in there, though. Okay, let's see. The Last Starfighter, did I mention that one? 1984. Again, I just heard somebody throw that out recently. I haven't seen that one, but that might be something you want to check out. Battlestar Galactica. That one was from the 1978 series. There were these robot things with this one red, electronic eye that went back and forth, and they had a sound with it that really scared the crap out of me as a little kid. Anyway, I'll just leave it at that. They had a remake, but I suggest looking at the originals before you see any of the remakes. Then we have Logan's Run from 1976. That was interesting concept, and it's kind of complex. I think I'll just leave that one for you to check out, though. I just remember as a little kid, I must have been really small, I was totally fascinated with the concept, of it, even then. Okay. Then we have Flash Gordon from 1934. And of course, there have been remakes on that. He-Man, Masters of the Universe. There's a lot of code in those original cartoons. And again, I did refer already to Sugar Season. I'll put links to that in the description area below. Some very interesting things going on there. Then there's The Dark Crystal from 1982, kind of the Muppet style Jim Henson movie. I did not see that one, but apparently there's a lot of tells in there too about a great conjunction and what's happening. And there's a scene where all these beings are singing in unison together. Some very interesting things going on there. And actually that's one I'm going to note to self to take a look at that movie soon. Then going more kind of in the fantasy, fairy, elemental realms, we have Willow. And that was from 1988. And that was filmed in New Zealand. That's kind of, I think, the first glimpse of New Zealand I have was through that movie. Happened to have Val Kilmer as the actor in it as well as one of them. And that has the whole theme of, sorcery and using magic versus traditional magic. Kind of interesting stuff going on in that movie. Okay, then we have The Matrix, I mentioned, from 1999. Total Recall from 1990, another Arnold Schwarzenegger film, but a lot of kind of little hint drops in there involving Mars and virtual reality and real reality. And then we have Men in Black. I did refer to already that end scene. Yeah, and seeing the all of the people on TV who turned out to be actual aliens. They were, that's what they were saying in the movie, right? So whether it's really that or not, up to you to kind of look into that further, right? And then, of course, they had another spoiler alert on that Men in Black was the little cat running around, and they were looking for Orion's belt, and it turned out it was the cat's collar, the cat named Orion, and had a little marble, which was the galaxy, was the Milky Way was on it, right? Or some, not Milky Way, it was some planet with little beings. Anyway, let's move along. We have Jurassic Park, 1993. The tell in that is, the DNA extracted from a mosquito that was trapped in amber. Now, are there beings doing that, kind of creating that stuff? I was just watching a YouTube channel. I think it just came newly to my attention, Nikki Allen, and she talked about that. Like that could be actually really going on. That was in one of her latest lives. Okay, Independence Day, 1996. What was the big thing? It was a simple virus that knocked out these negative ETs, right? Then we got more hint drops coming up in Mars Attacks from 1996. I wasn't fond of that movie. I didn't like the vibe of it, but hint drops and tells in there too of any kind of negative groups experimenting on people and kind of putting a human with a part human, part animal. I think that was a nod back to what some of the wayward people losing in touch with the morality of the Atlanteans started doing with people. Maybe not physically dissecting and putting people together, but doing it through other genetic manipulation means. Okay, then we have Galaxy Quest from 1999, and that was kind of mocking like the dumbed down generation in society of people like watching Star Trek. And basically, that was a fun concept of that movie. Actually, I might just leave that. I don't want to give too much away. But it's like a parody of some of the sci-fi TV shows, let's just say. But very interesting what happens there. I'll leave that one alone. All right, the TV series V, 1983. And that's another one where what do we have? Reptilians, but they're camouflaged to look like human. Now, I think I only saw one of those episodes, and then I was like, I got kind of terrified, creeped out by the concept when I was smaller. I wasn't that small, but small enough, I guess. I didn't like those kinds of movies. So I never really kind of fully watched it. I might go revisit that a bit. Then we have the movie Big Hero 6, a cartoon or animation from 2014, and that gets into the whole concept of, they call them microbots, but it really was nanobot technology and how it was misused, misapplied. Field of Dreams, 1989, departing a little bit now in genre, going to kind of more of a supernatural of things. Also, there was a cool thing about two people having the same dream at the same time, that whole phenomenon, stuff about the spirit realm, getting very bending on the time and how time works. Pretty interesting, that movie. There's a lot that might, if you haven't seen it, definitely worth seeing. Evoke something in you, memories even. All right, then we have The Day the Earth Stood Still from 1951, and then there was a remake in 2008. I did see that, but you know what? I don't remember a whole lot from it, so I need to rewatch that one. Then we have the movie Signs, 2002. Again, I don't like creep out movies, so I kind of watched that on fast forward and just jump to different spaces and spots on that. But you'll definitely see like an ET variety in there that wasn't so happy, we'll just say. Then there's I, Robot from 2004. I did mention that already when the robot becomes sentient. Also in that movie is a great example to, they show you right in the beginning, the lead character, Will Smith, has a motorcycle that runs on gasoline while everyone else has something that runs on electric or can be overridden and controlled by something else, but the motorcycle could not. That's key, keeping the independence of our, sovereignty without having one all mastering thing controlling everything where it can just shut down everything against your will. Keeping our independence is so key. All right, Transformers for 2007. They talk about the Allspark and the Transformer. They come from somewhere else. Lots of interesting hint and truth drops in there. A more recent one came out called Rise of the Beasts in 2023. It also had some interesting little truth drops in there, probably in conjunction with technology and galactic beings. Okay, then there's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I never saw that one. That came out in 2005. I know a lot of people like it. I remember watching it, but I remember not really liking it in the moment. So maybe I need to give that one another chance. But I knew there were like little hints in there. Then we have another one, Ghost. Okay, I talked about that on another show. really some powerful things that are very true throughout that entire movie when you get into the psychic world, intuitive world, mediumship. I found a lot in there where I've had direct experiences where it's absolutely true, but on the not as the intuitive, but as the person going to one at the beginning of my spiritual journey. And I've talked about that on other shows. Not for kids, kind of violent, but just certain scenes. For adults, it's okay, but the rest of the truth in there is very worth watching of how things can work when you are quote unquote on the other side or in between, actually not on the other side, in between worlds, trapped between two worlds. And actually a few little hint drops too of what happens if you kind of miss the light, so to speak, when the light comes for you, go to the living light. You don't want to miss it because you can get stuck. And if you're lucky, you can find somebody very intuitive or a medium who can sense you and help move you along back to the light. But if not, you can be stuck around for a long time. And that's what happens with ghosts. Okay. All right, then there's a movie. I didn't actually see this one, but I don't know even how it caught to my attention, but it's called Knowing from 2009. And Nicolas Cage is in that one. It's something about a super solar flare destroying Earth or whatever, the threat of it. It gets interesting and trippy on the paranormal side. But anyway, I think the big message there is don't automatically just run to an ET ship thinking it's going to save you. Feel it out. Make sure it's a friendly if any of that happens. I mean, nothing's going to go down like it's presented in that movie, but I'm just saying in general, if something comes to you, make sure you ask it to identify itself. Excuse me. And I mean more like in dream state too, because there are a lot of entities that can kind of shape shift or take form as someone you know and love or whatever, even visiting you in your dream. So just have the awareness to say, identify yourself, name yourself, who are you, and push love at it. And if it doesn't want that, it'll back away if it's not of love. If it's trying to be deceptive, it won't tell you a name maybe, and something will just feel off. So just because you see, oh, that looks like so and so, make sure you ask it to identify who it is first. If it's of love, and it will have no problem doing that, or it'll emote a feeling that you can't mistake for love. But if it's anything shifty, just really kind of pay attention to that intuition, even in your dream. Okay. Then we have The Lord of the Rings, and that's 2001. And of course, what's the big message of that one? That was books by J.R.R. Tolkien from maybe starting the 30s into the 40s. The message there was one ring to rule them all. Actually, I have a little copy of one in different colors. One ring to rule them all. So I think that's where we're at now, to watch out. There's a dark force that's claiming to rule us all and was getting away with it too, kind of like Scooby-Doo, the cartoon from the 70s, I guess. If you know it, you know it. What I'm going to say, it's like, and it would have gotten away with it too if it weren't for those meddling kids, right? Was the line every time when the kids in their little Scooby van cracked the case of the mystery van, right? They solved the mystery. So one ring to rule them all. Well, that's what they think. They got away with it for a little while, but now game over. The evil's on its way out the door, and see ya. Wouldn't want to be ya, right? Time for us to ascend and no more of this dark stuff we didn't know we were being controlled by until now. Okay, and now I use that relatively speaking. Then we have the movies getting more into the mythology, back to the kind of who are really these Greek gods. Clash of the Titans and Wrath of the Titans. The remake of Clash of the Titans from 2010, and then the sequel to that 2012. There's some hint drops in there, some interesting things. Is it exactly as they're portraying? No. I think some of these gods, again, they call themselves that, are really ETs who have been around forever, still maybe living, still kicking it. Some of those things can actually body jump. It's said that the Queen, the recent one that passed, we'll just say, supposedly could retain its memories, for hundreds of years and just jump into a different body. So when you've got a dark entity that can do that, oh my gosh, right? Easy to oppress a crowd of newbies who have no idea about the real history when you've lived, so many lifetimes and still are here present without missing a beat. That's all supposedly possible. But anyway, back to it. So if some of these are ET races that have been going on forever, they're still kicking it here on the earth with turf wars and making us caught in the middle and using us fodder for their wars. So we got to step back and say, no, it is not of human being nature to true human being creation to hurt each other, kill each other, whatever. We come together in love every time. There's a severe, just look at natural disasters. True human beings come together and help each other. Period. I've lived through it, experienced it myself. We see it in all the recent awful events. Human beings come together and help each other where they can. Okay? It is the loving heart that does that. All right. And then the other stuff is either it looks like a human, has been taken over or been possessed by a bad dark entity, or is being run by something else. And it's just the shell of the human that you see, but it doesn't mean that's a real human being. Case in point, whatever's wondering to rule them all over this planet at the moment, that's getting kicked to the curb right now. Okay, then let's see. We have Dragonheart 3 I've referred to in another, I guess, podcast. Dragonheart 3, there's a whole series of those movies. Again, a little bit of cheese factor there. But in that one, the dying dragon doesn't mind so much because he knows he's going to become a star in the Draco constellation up in the heavens. So he's not too disturbed about it. It's like an honor to go that way type of thing. And in that movie, too, we get a lot of other, hint drops, especially jumping. And in that one, the dragon is teaching the protagonist how to teleport by jumping through the shadows of trees and figuring that out. So again, these, I think, are real hint drops of what things we might have been already known how to do back in the Celtic Druid times. They were so in touch with nature. We have all those stories, right, of what going through stones as portals to other times and dimensions. So why not jumping through the shadows of the trees, right? There's a lot that we used to know that we don't know anymore. You look at the pictograph and Celtic cultures, Native American cultures, all kinds of things. You see the spiral. For some, that can, for me, I just have heard that means that interdimensional ability or like a portal. It can also mean a number of things. Really wise woman I heard recently, if you're listening to this, you are, mentioned it could mean something about community. There's a lot to the circle, of course. It could also mean like galactic stuff happening, like the spinning of the arms of the Milky Way and all that. Anyway, I'll continue. Power Rangers Dino Charge. Oh my gosh. Total cheese factor, totally hokey, but there's something to it. I found myself watching that. There's this ancient wise one called the Keeper, and there's all these cool crystals. So of course I like it. Anyway, I think that was filmed in part in New Zealand, and then it's from 2015. There's even episodes where they dabble into kind of, oh, look at that kooky zany guy talking about Bigfoot, kind of stuff is strewn about and that too. Okay, but there's some interesting little tells and that as well about how some things might work. And then I did already mention Race to Witch Mountain from 2009 with seeing like midway through that movie, there's extreme, showing of chemtrailing in the sky. And then the forerunner to that was Escape from Witch Mountain in 1975. And I remember watching that as a little kid and just being in awe of the little girl's little purse that had like this cool star on it. And I just remember thinking, oh, that's so cool. So anyway, that movie, now that I watched it as an adult, it felt a little disturbing. But as a kid, I was in awe. And I think that's because we do have like our galactic ET time memories, and especially when we're little, we're closer to those memories. And so it didn't disturb me as much. I don't know why it disturbed me now. I think I need to watch that one again as well. Well, those are all the movies on my list. So it looks like this will be maybe an episode most people are going to catch on the replay. Feel free to just, jot down if you feel like it. If not, no big deal. In the comment section, what movies seem to make an impression on you, maybe kind of reactivate something in you, feel like resonating as true, or a big glaring obvious, oh, that's a hint drop, that's a predictive programming, you're trying to do this and that. Just anything for fun. So the whole point of this show is just to discuss some of these things and have a good time with it. And if nothing else, just be a list, like a laundry list of movies that you might want to catch if you don't know about them, or to rewatch them at present. Okay. Thank you so much, Sharon, over there. Thank you. Nice chatting, and thanks. And again, anybody, if you're trying to put comments in later and they don't show up, it's not me, it's the platform. And otherwise, I appreciate each and every one of you, and glad we're all here together through the highs and the lows of this crazy world for what it is. But there's a lot of beauty to it. And I was just reminded recently also, actually based on toward the end of Starman, I was just reminded of something. It said that everybody's clamoring to come here on this planet and experience the experience that is the Earth. It's supposedly, some will say a laboratory, some will say it's a school. For me, it's just like an experiment. It's where we can all interact and discover and experience anything that we want infinitely, and go where our motivation and heart takes us. And it's also about being in this physical body. So apparently, like in Starman, the first being is so highly advanced that it's just non-corporeal. There's no 3D to it. It's just like a glowing light orb. Well, that glowing light orb can't experience things like eating and taste and actually touch, knocking on stuff. It's a different, it experiences everything very differently. And so supposedly for a lot of these, what do we call it, more advanced, ET beings, or evolved ones, yeah, they're not as in touch. There's no like 3D stuff. Like you can't pick up a handful of sand and feel the grains as they drop. You can't immerse your hand in water and know what that feels like we can in a 3D body. Yeah, they have like probably a bliss out state and don't, at some level care so much. But I can see why we might have, like they said, signed up to be here, where we might say, hey, I miss what it was like to sit under the sun or feel my toes on the beach, or floating in water. And the main thing that I keep coming back to is I think as a part of this ascension process, if we want to call it that, or collective evolving of consciousness, is that we're having different eating patterns. And again, I often refer to Higher Vibrations over there at her YouTube channel, because she talks about a lot of the symptoms, and her community, everyone chimes in on, oh, feeling this week, or something's off, or, whatever. And it's not just one person. It's like a lot of people sharing different symptoms happening. And I think one of them recently was suddenly everybody, normally they never want it, but want chocolate. And that just ties back into my example at some of these non-corporal, body forms, these little orbs and things. Like a big question is, hey, what does chocolate taste like? How could you know if you're just a beautiful light ball floating around? Now, again, you're in a bliss state floating around as a light ball, but you don't know what chocolate tastes like. So that's why when some of us say, oh, it's so hard to be here, I really want to get off this planet. Yes, I know. Many people have. And it is a free will choice to get out however you wish. Of course, not recommended to off yourself, but people are doing it if they just can't handle the pressure. Of course, get help, talk to people, do whatever you can to not do that, because we came here for the big show. This is precisely when we have come here for. And like I just said, we're going to miss when we ascend. And if we ever become like this, total light body, with no 3D density to it, we're going to miss like looking at the trees, hugging a tree, for goodness sakes, feeling your feet on the grass and in the dirt. I hate to say it, but yeah, in essence, that is what we're here for. We're not the human doings. What do you do for a living? We're a human being to experience all of it. The breeze on your face, the sun, artificial or no, whatever it is happening up there right now, just feeling heat and warmth, feeling cold. No insult intended there, Lake Superior Skywatcher nature lover. I know you're going through quite the cold, but hey, experiencing snow, there's many people who haven't even done that. And what it's like to have a snowflake hit you in the face, very tactile experiences. So anyway, we are here to feel it. And I'll end on this. Just something that occurred to me when I had to walk a very beloved family member through to hospice level and be there transitioning him off this dimension. Okay. One thing that came to mind is unless you do it in a certain way, a more homeopathic minded way, when you come on this earth, say you're in the Western world, like in the US, and you're going to the hospital and doing the quote unquote traditional mainstream route of doing that, of having a baby, what happens? I won't get into the details. It's not pretty for most. But when the baby actually arrives, that means any one of us, when we come out, what happens? Most of the time we're screaming, crying, whether you were slapped or not. There's a process that has to happen to expel. We were liquid breathers in the womb, and now suddenly we're air breathers. We completely change. So think about that. That's a traumatizing moment, right? Or can be very jarring. So we scream, we cry. There's something involved. When we leave this planet, especially if you're leaving in a way that's traumatic, an awful accident or something suddenly happens, or your system's shutting down slowly and you're going through the pain of that, there is a period where you're going to feel it. That's my point. We come here feeling it. We leave here often feeling it. Now, if you gracefully go in your sleep, that's another story. But I'm talking about the tactile moments. It's like, it's a funny phrase, not funny, but we've all heard the phrase that's usually implied with the gym when your muscles are hurting, no pain, no gain. Well, it really is like no quote unquote pain. We have sensory pain cells for a reason. It's like, that's when things, I've talked about this before, become real. That's when you slam into your body. Things aren't theoretical anymore. It's not just like wishing people thoughts and prayers. You are in the body needing the prayers, or you are praying. You feel it. So the pain coming in when we're born and potential pain when we're leaving, it marks that, hey, we were real. I'm going to cry. We are here in the 3D. Didn't expect to cry. Anyway, enjoy every moment you're here. The painful moments, the joyful moments, all of it. Because I've experienced too much lately with people transitioning. The only thing that matters here is love, and that feeling of love that, outweighs all of it. You hear a mother who just had given birth, and you're like, oh, that was so painful, right? But then over time, you forget about that. You don't hang on to the pain that it actually took. You just remember and feel all the love. So feel it, all of it. Feel the pain, but feel the joy. Feel the in-between. Feel the confusion. Feel the lostness, if that's even a word. Feel all of it. That's exactly what we are here to do. That's what that main spark, the analogy of God is the sparkler, and we're the little sparks off of it. God is sending out all these little sparks. We're the sparks to see what it all feels like. And then we all come back into the one, and it integrates. And it's like, that's the whole picture. And it's kind of like the phrase, I have truly lived. Well, if you've truly lived, it isn't usually just the good times, the highlights. It's experiencing the full range of it, the depths of grieving, the jubilation of greeting a new little life into the world, even helping walk somebody home. It's an honor. So anyway, I just want to say thank you for being here. And as always, I wish everyone tremendous peace and love. And on a lighter note, because I took it down deep, I think, happy movie watching. Pick something good. And again, if it'll let you, in the comments or whatever, let me know. Check back in if you watched anything fun. And like I said, that was my list of 75 movies. I'll show you. I just jotted it down really quick. I know that there aren't, this is like 1 of 3 pages. I know there's so many more. But if you find anything fun, or you watch something again and it's like, ooh, an aha moment, watching it again, like, ooh, that was in there. Feel free to jot it down or silently compare notes, but whatever. Okay. So thanks for being here, and have a beautiful weekend. Oh, and for anybody who celebrates Easter, happy Easter. I believe my Live 6, that became my Easter show, if you will. You'll see why if you watch the second half. So blessings to everyone, no matter what your walk of faith, no faith, not sure what's going on. We're a human family. I give real hugs, not virtual ones. Just imagine a huge family hug coming your way, especially if you're in a low point right now. Stay here, live life, live it. All right. Take care, everyone. Tremendous peace and love to you all.